Yo, this D-Lo 404, Boxing and More. I want to make a quick video, talk about this video is basically in response to a video I watched on one of the big channels the other day. They were actually talking about a topic that I've always had a lot of interest in, and that's the failure of Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis to come together and make a fight, and to make that fight come to fruition. So and the whole reason it was brought about is because of Lennox's comments about AJ and Wilder needing to take a page out of the book of KSI and Logan Paul, and doing the way they done that split to basically make sure that they both came out on top, and with their fight, their little pay-per-view YouTube fight, between two non-boxers. They really done great numbers, and they made a ton of money. So that's what I would like to talk about. But before I get into that, I just want to say shout out to my subscribers. Shout out to repeat viewers. If you're not subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. If you're feeling the content, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Like I always say, I like to get that interaction with the with my viewers. I like to have some conversations about the content. So that way it helps me to get better at what I'm doing. I want to know that I'm talking about things that my viewers are interested in hearing about. So with that said, let me get into this. The topic of the conversation on this channel that I'm talking about, and I'm not going to call out the name of the channel, pretty much because this isn't a big up video. If I was, complimenting them, I'd be saying, I'd shout them out. But on this, I'm not trying to, thumb them and, stick my thumb in their eye or anything like that. But basically, there was some misinformation, put out on that video, and I kind of just want to touch on that. So the topic of the video was, they talked about, sorry for getting tongue tied there for a minute, but they talked about, AJ, being forced into fighting Wilder, and they talked about the potential that AJ could throw his belt in the trash, throw one of his belts in the trash if Wilder, was in a position where, he could force that fight. And they kind of compared this to the Lennox Lewis situation with Riddick Bowe, saying, of course, back then Bowe was the champ. Bowe was I think Bowe had all the major titles at the time. This is after he had beat Holyfield. And Lennox Lewis had worked his way up to becoming Bowe's mandatory. One of the things that was said on this video was that Lennox Lewis was a champion and this was a unification bout. That's not true. Lennox didn't have a title at the time. Lennox had worked his way up to become WBC mandatory. And what happened was, and I'm not going to get all into the particulars if I know exactly what the negotiations were and what the offers were. But basically, the sanctioning body had gotten to a point where they were forcing Bowe to take the fight. And the split was going to be this for Bowe and this for Lewis. If they could come to an agreement. Offers had been made to Lewis for the fight that he turned down. And I said in another video, I think this is just my opinion. I think the bad blood between the two guys was reflected in the offers that Lennox was made, and he deemed those offers. He and his team deemed those offers as disrespectful, unacceptable. So they declined the offers. And I think ultimately Lennox was in a better position if he basically held out for a purse bid and took the percent that the WBC would give him off of a purse bid over the offers that he was being offered at the time. That's what I've read in the past. Is that that the purse bid was if it came to a purse bid, Lennox was going to get a better deal than what he was being offered by Bowe, and Bowe was not happy with having to give Lennox what he would have to give him on a purse bid. So ultimately he threw the belts in the trash can. At the suggestion of his manager or promoter, Rock Newman. I think this is what Rock's last name was, Newman. But anyway, So, I mean, I'm gonna stop there at the details of that, but the comparison was being made, to that, and saying that AJ could end up in a position where he's being forced to fight Wilder for a unification, and the question raised was, would AJ throw his belts in the trash or a belt in the trash to avoid fighting Wilder? And the phrase was, was said that, he would play the role of Riddick Bowe in that situation. Well, to that I say, I don't think Wilder, as long as Wilder is a champion, I don't think that any sanctioning body is going to force a unification. Because, for one, that champion in the other sanctioning body, like Wilder being a WBC champion right now, he would never be forced upon Joshua. He would never be forced upon Joshua as a mandatory because he's holding that WBC title. So the WBA, WBO, or the IBF, neither of them would put Wilder in a mandatory position for their title while he's still holding that WBC belt. So that comparison really, aside from the fact that if you want to say one guy doesn't want to fight the other guy, or, aside from that, I mean, that's really where that comparison kind of falls off. I mean, because you can't, like I said, Bowe and Lennox, that was not a unification fight. That was a guy that worked his way up to be the mandatory, was in a position to get his shot. The other guy didn't want to, under those terms, did not want to give him the shot, so he basically vacated the title. And then, Lennox ended up with the title. But in this situation, I'll say again, both of these guys are champions. Wilder can't be forced to fight AJ. As long as AJ is a champion, AJ can't be forced to fight Wilder. The only force that can be applied upon them is by the fans, by the media. If their promoter, if their management or promotional teams kind of push the envelope and say, hey man, you really need to fight this guy, I guess you can look at that as pressure being applied. But as far as the sanctioning body, I don't see a scenario where, as long as these guys are both champions, any sanctioning body is going to force them to fight one another. They just have to want to fight one another. They have to want to prove that they are better than the other guy, or want to be the only heavyweight champion out there. And once that motivation is reached, and once that comes to the forefront, the fight will be made. I mean, but there's other factors as well. But I'm just saying, no sanctioning body is gonna or can force, based on the rules that I've read from sanctioning bodies, they're not gonna force a unification bout. They'll respect the unification bout if a guy wants to unify. I mean, they'll honor that, but they're not going to force any champion to unify with another champion. And I don't think that's ever been done. I mean, not that I know of. I mean, yeah, they may want that to happen because of the sanctioning fees, and they may suggest it, and they may say, hey, go ahead. I mean, because ultimately, if you're wearing their belt, you're representing that sanctioning body. And if you're viewed as a coward, a chicken, or whatever you want to say, and I'm not saying AJ's a coward or chicken, I'm just using this for an example. But if whatever it is, if you're viewed as a guy that's ducking another fighter, if I was over the sanctioning body, I would be urging my titleist, my champion, to go out there and show that he's deserving. And if he's not, then I want the other guy to be my champion. If he goes out there and he loses, then hey, the best guy is now my champion. So I would be urging them to go ahead, but I wouldn't force it because, it's just kind of unprecedented. But I just wanted to clear up that misinformation. The Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis is not a unification bout. And AJ and Wilder would be a unification bout. And I just don't see where that bout can be forced. Not by a sanctioning body. But I will say that I'm hopeful that the fight happens, and I hope it happens soon. I'm hoping that both guys get past their next opponents, and I would love to see the fight in April. I mean, I absolutely would love to see the fight in April, regardless of where it's fought at, regardless of the purse splits, regardless of who walks to the ring first, regardless of, any of that nonsense. You know, who's announced first, whatever. I just want to see the fight happen because I think the guys are two of the best fighters at heavyweight, and I think, you know, the best should fight the best. So, and I know the fight is huge for the sport of boxing. I love the sport of boxing. I love the big fights. I like to see the fight happen. But, you know, that said, I'll reiterate one more time. I just don't see a scenario where a sanctioning body can force this fight to happen. These guys have to want this fight. And if they both want the fight, and if they're both willing to give enough to make the fight happen, it's basically all about being fair and respecting one another as champions. If that happens, the fight takes place. As long as that's not happening, as long as guys out there throwing out offers that are saying that, basically showing that you don't have any respect for the other guy and what he's accomplished, I think the fight's going to still be far away from being made. But that said, I just want to say shout out to the LDBC, shout out New Media. I'm out of here. Appreciate it.